I spend time, and you have served on a number of very distinguished boards, and it used to be that no one wanted to serve on the audit committee because of Sarbox. But now, where the time sink is around the area of executive committee, executive compensation, because to your point, do we have in place a talent system? Are we looking at management development and talent development as part of the mandate, not only of the CEO, but the board? Yeah. Now, you worked with a very distinguished CEO, Larry Bossidy, who came out of GE when you were on the Allied board. I suspect he was pretty passionate about this, wasn't he?
Well, he was. In fact, when we merged with Honeywell, that had as much to do with management succession as it did to do with the synergies between the company, because they had a very strong management team.
Well, and he's, we both know, a very tough guy, and really tough in developing people. And his comment for a long time when he was at GE was that an awful lot of what GE did was develop skills that were portable, that you could move across the different businesses. And that's something that I think we need to see more of, that they aren't just within a narrow finance or accounting or whatever else, marketing, but you're developing a set of skills that you can travel across an enterprise. And those people tend to be a little more attractive as candidates.
But I'm not in agreement with the sort of McKinsey wunderkid type of approach.
The star CEO.
I do not believe that if you do really well in managing the locomotive factory at GE, that you can suddenly go to Walmart and manage a big retail operation. I believe the leadership skills may be the same, but the technical competence in the job is very, very different. And we have there's some good cases of people that have tried to do that and have not been successful.
As a leader then, what were the sort of foundational principles that you took out of an amazing career in the military, an amazing business career? What were the sort of core principles that drove you, that you then tried to socialize in the businesses you ran?
Well, in addition to the three we talked about, the technical competence, adaptability, and ability to communicate, I think what you learn in the military is multitasking.
Yeah.
You routinely are dealing with 4 to 6 different issues. In combat in Vietnam, I was routinely talking on 5 or 6 radio nets, and you have to keep all that compartmentalized, and it comes together.
Right.
I think that taking care of your people, whether that's in the company or whether that's in the military. It's especially true in the company now. And you have to go, I was quite surprised. We did focus groups at State Street one time, and I was and our workforce was 22,000, half men, half women, exactly half, average age 31. And I was quite surprised when the focus group showed that people did not want health daycare on site.
Really?
Because it's a big urban area. They did not want to commute on the subway or the bus with their children. But what they wanted the company to do was to take 50 slots at daycare centers around Boston, pay for them, and so that if their daycare fell through on a given day, they could call the XYZ daycare and say, this is a State Street child, and they'd take them. That's frightfully expensive. That is frightfully expensive. That's maybe $2 million. But that's what the workforce want, and that's what we, you know, we probably wound up doing part of that. A good example, my wife was very helpful in designing lactation stations.
Yeah.
With half the employees women of childbearing age. We had to have 16 or 20 lactation stations so that they could deal with that issue.
And these are the things that when new CEOs step into a business that usually aren't on their first orientation day, these are the things that are the surprises, the little things that pop in the night.
Yeah, you have about 5 different rulers. You have your customers.
Yes.
Your employees.
Right. The
local town where we dominated the workforce in a town of 90,000 people. You have Wall Street, the investors. You have your board of directors. So you really have 5 or 6 things that you're holden to, that you have to meet their requirements.
We always, in talking about leadership, we talk about those as the courageous conversations that you have to be in it all the time. And if you miss one of those, something's going to come up and bite you. You know, you've got to always be.
Well, you have to think outside the box.
Yeah.
We tried to build a 1,100 car garage at our site at Quincy because the employees that young don't do a lot of carpooling.
Right.
And the fire chief was fighting us on it because the cars now are about half plastic and they have very serious fires in these parking lots. So my logistics officer and I were brainstorming one day and we said, look, let's think like a fire chief. And this parking lot was going to cost us $11 million. What's the center of a fire chief's world? Fire trucks. Let's buy him a fire truck. Fire trucks are cheap, you know. So we bought him a special fire truck, and he went to the planning board every week, you know, to
get
push for our
approval for
your fire. So you really have to do some innovative things to get to where you want to be.
That's a very good story, and it actually gets to the roots of how you provide incentives for people to play. You know, how you make it easier for people to collaborate.
Well, actually, what we did was we stopped all the auditorium like this,
right,
with all the employees, and you have some National Football League motivational speaker getting them all wound up in balloons, and you got the Chinese pen and pencil set to the salesperson of the quarter. We stopped all of that.
Yeah.
Because the person then goes back and says, I got the lousy one-line telephone, you know. We started splitting the revenue, giving the revenue out on a quarterly basis. If you worked across units,
right,
and produced revenue by cross-selling products, you got a piece of the action.
I know how you travel, and you travel widely and broadly, internationally, and all the rest. And everyone that sat in this chair during this series are people who live the same kind of high-velocity life, a life of constant intensity and distraction and demands. We're all wired to some device somewhere. And we've been talking today about our devices. And how do you stay alive in your own life? How do you find this elusive thing called balance? What are the sort of things you do to keep you grounded?
Well, your life is like a 3 or 4-legged stool. You have your family, your work, and then religion, and then a third outside interest that's you as a person.
Right.
And you can't have a 2-legged stool that falls over. So you have to have this, whatever it is, running marathons,
right,
coaching your kid's soccer team. Even during the height of World War II, President Roosevelt, when the pressure got too bad, would go for a couple of hours and work with his stamp collection. He had a magnificent stamp collection he'd had all his life.
Yeah.
So this was an activity or an event that treats you as an individual and allows you to get out of the back and forth between the family and the work, that kind of thing.
What can you tell this audience that you do?
Well, I've actually been a pilot for about 30 years, so
Yeah.
I fly my little seaplane around New England.
You have a seaplane. That's perfect.
And I'll go flying at 6 in the morning, you know, for 2 hours, and it's very relaxing. A little less forgiving than golf, you know, but it's actually very, very relaxing. Because it requires your total concentration. You don't take a business problem with you when you're going to fly your airplane. You know, you have to leave that on the ground.
One of the things that one notices in spending any time with you, beyond your mischief, is that you're a wonderful listener. You listen very carefully, and people feel as if you're present with them. And it's both a sign of respect, but I suspect that you've learned to do that over a long career. Now notice we aren't talking to your wife about this, but we're talking about how did you learn to do that? I mean, why? It's obviously something that people come away and feel that they really connect with you. You really listen.
Well, it's like politics, you know. American politics is based on sincerity, and once you learn how to fake that, you got it made, you know. My 2 kids, when they were teenagers, gave me a T-shirt for Christmas that had Space Cadet on it, you know.
Come back, Dad.
So,
come back, Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I had a very interesting childhood. When my dad, who was an Army brat, when he was 9 or 10, they were based on a base with the 9th Cavalry, which was one of the black regiments. Yes. These famous Buffalo soldiers, the 9th and 10th Cavalry and the 24th and 25th Infantry. And he grew up with the kids of the sergeants of that regiment. and they were his best friends.
Sure.
So from the time I was, could remember, it was always about a person's color, demeanor, height, weight. It means nothing.
Right.
It's what everybody has a worth. So getting that lesson very early in life, I think, really put me through. I also learned patient leadership in Vietnam in the military. So if we were going out on a big helicopter-borne attack at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, every Marine in my rifle company of 225 Marines had to understand what we're going to do, right down to the privates. I couldn't just brief the lieutenants. The lieutenants had to brief the sergeants, the corporals, the lance corporals. So you learn patient leadership that way.